Most people who know Dante know him as the guy who wrote about hell, a medieval Italian poet with vivid descriptions of sinners being punished in creative and horrific ways. That is true, but it is the least interesting thing about him. What Dante actually did was launch the Renaissance, plant the seeds of the Protestant Reformation, and fundamentally rewire the intellectual operating system of an entire civilization, using poetry as his weapon. Not swords, not armies, not political speeches, poetry. And the most brilliant part, he did it by making his enemy the hero. It is 1265 AD in Florence, Italy. The Catholic Church is the most powerful institution in Europe, not just spiritually but politically and economically. It controls universities, it controls kings, it controls whose ideas are acceptable and whose are dangerous. And the intellectual foundation of educated Europe, the shared mental framework that every school person had absorbed since childhood, was built around one Roman poet above all others, Virgil. For centuries, the Aeneid, Virgil's epic poem about the founding of Rome, had been the book you read to understand civilization, duty, and the right ordering of human society. Virgil's Aeneid is a story about a man who sacrifices his personal happiness, his loves, and his deepest desires for the greater glory of Rome. Everything personal is subordinated to the imperial project. The individual exists to serve the state. This is the Roman ideal. Dante recognized that as long as this ideal lived at the center of the European imagination, there could be no Renaissance, no individualism, no scientific revolution, no genuine human freedom. To change the world, Dante had to change the book that the world was reading. But here is the problem with changing the book that everyone reads. You cannot just tell people the old book is wrong. People do not give up their foundational texts because someone argues against them. So Dante did something more subtle, something that reads in retrospect as one of the most sophisticated intellectual maneuvers in the history of literature. He made Virgil the hero of his own poem. The Divine Comedy begins with Dante, the poet, not just a character, lost in a dark wood. It is midlife crisis rendered as metaphor. He does not know where he is going. He is confused and frightened. And then a figure appears, Virgil, the great Roman poet sent from heaven to guide Dante through hell and purgatory. So right from the start, Dante honors Virgil. He calls him master. He calls him father. He follows him. But then Dante begins doing something almost invisible. He makes Virgil an unreliable narrator. Throughout the Divine Comedy, Virgil says things that turn out to be wrong. He makes promises he cannot keep. He contradicts himself. He explains the rules of the universe with great confidence, and then the rules turn out to be different. Slowly, over the course of 3 books, the reader's subconscious begins registering that this trusted guide is not entirely trustworthy. The brain works mostly below the level of conscious awareness. It is always looking for inconsistencies, always trying to resolve contradictions. That is what Dante engineered. The reader follows Virgil loyally while their subconscious builds up a growing unease, an unease that will eventually flower into a completely new way of seeing the world. In Virgil's Aeneid, the Carthaginian queen Dido falls in love with Aeneas, the hero Virgil is celebrating. Aeneas leaves her. She kills herself. And Virgil treats this as a minor footnote, one woman's personal tragedy, unfortunate but necessary for the greater Roman project. When Dante reaches the second circle of hell, reserved for those who sin through love, Virgil begins naming the souls. He names everyone, but when they come to Dido, Virgil pointedly does not name her. Dante notices, and Dante does name Dido. You refuse to acknowledge your own creation, he says in effect to Virgil. I will give her the mercy and dignity you denied her. Virgil uses love as a tool for his own narrative, and discards what does not serve him. Dante believes love requires respect, mercy, and acknowledgement, even for those who failed. When Dante and Virgil arrive at Purgatory, they are met by Cato, a Roman statesman who chose death over submission to Julius Caesar. Cato committed suicide rather than live under tyranny, but Dante places him as the guardian of Purgatory, a figure of extraordinary dignity and authority. Because Cato chose freedom over survival, he chose death rather than accept a world defined by another man's power. This is exactly the spirit Dante is trying to awaken in his reader. Virgil guides Dante through hell and purgatory, but at the entrance to paradise, Virgil stops. He cannot go further. He is a virtuous pagan born before Christianity. Here, Beatrice takes over. Beatrice was a real woman, a Florentine girl Dante loved but never married. She died young, and Dante spent the rest of his life writing about her. In the Divine Comedy, she is the one who sent Virgil to guide Dante in the first place. She is the one waiting in paradise. She is the one who can take him to the final vision of God. This is the ultimate statement. Human love, personal, intimate, unrequited love, is a higher guide to truth than all the wisdom of Rome. The empire, with all its glory, cannot reach God. Love can. The Divine Comedy became the most memorized poem in Italian history, which meant that for generations every educated Italian's brain was quietly being rewired by its paradoxes, questioning authority, elevating love and individual experience, planting the seeds of a new world view. From that rewired brain came the painters of the Renaissance, the scientists who challenged church orthodoxy, the reformers who broke apart Christian unity in the Reformation. Dante did not cause all this directly, he just changed what people were thinking with. The most powerful force in any civilization is not its army or its economy, it is its imagination, the shared stories and frameworks that determine what people believe is possible. If you want to change a civilization, you do not fight its armies, you change its stories, you change what it memorizes and repeats and builds its children on. Homer did it for the Greeks 3,000 years ago, encoding in the Iliad and the Odyssey the values and questions that would define Greek civilization for centuries. Dante did it for the Western world 800 years ago, encoding in the Divine Comedy the seeds of modernity, individual dignity, the primacy of love, the courage to question authority, and then hid those seeds so artfully in beauty and tradition that no one could burn them out. That is what it means to be the second coming of Homer, not a copy, a continuation, the same fire burning in a new